What if somebody's really into yellow stucco and fluorescent lights? Like they're like, man, this is heaven. I'm just gonna wander for years, and it's gonna be great. Like, and I know I'm being funny, but it is a certain degree. It's like, why is it creepy? Because it affects somebody a certain way, and like I said.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Chaotic Underground. I'm joined today by Bonsai Bandit Steven and Z Diggity Zach.
Hello.
I'm Ryan Damask. As a reminder, always super helpful to us. If you like and subscribe to the channel, it helps us grow. It helps us hit the algorithm. It helps us make more cool content for you that you enjoy and that we enjoy. So go ahead and hit those like buttons. And to get us started today, we're going to be talking about a little something in internet culture known as the Backrooms. Now, have you guys ever heard of the Backrooms before? Today?
Z.
I've been to a few websites that feature the Backrooms, if you know what I'm saying. No. I know. I've never heard of the Backrooms.
That's not what I was expecting at all. I feel like I should have been ready for that joke. I should have seen it coming. Didn't.
I had to get it out of the way, right at the beginning. It's just like, and I'll never say it again.
Okay, but yes, I've heard of the Backrooms. I think I saw a couple people on YouTube playing the game. I guess it is. It's a game of the Backrooms. It looks like an old office building that you just continuously walk through, I guess is what it looks like.
Yep. Yeah. So that's a large idea of it. So the game came out much later than the origin of the story. You guys we've talked about other kind of creepypasta scenarios before on here. Same kind of deal here. Back in, I think it was 2018, it was a user on one of the paranormal 4chan subsites that brought up this picture, and it was basically a picture of this yellow, like really mundane office that had a lot of open space, no furniture or anything, and it was just a very unnerving photo. And someone captioned under it, basically, if you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the Backrooms, where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you.
Huh, okay.
I love the word humbuzz. It makes me happy on my inside.
It's a good word. It's the first time I'd ever seen it.
So,
first question I have. What exactly is this? Like the Backrooms? Is this a game? Is this a real thing? Is this like something like a creepypasta thing? Is this what is this like? Yeah.
So, for all intents and purposes, it just started off as kind of a creepypasta thing. Someone posted this strange picture of just an unnerving looking photo, right? And then someone else came along and commented anonymously that kind of gave it a little bit of lore, right? And then it just kind of grew wings from there. It stayed relatively underground. I mean, it was on some creepypasta like wiki pages and stuff like that. And there was other people who documented their experiences in the Backrooms or scenarios in the Backrooms. But it never made it much outside that original. Like you're walking around, it's all you hear is like the hum of the fluorescent lights, and they become more louder and maddening, and then they just instantly go silent. Or that the carpet throughout these hundreds of million square miles is just like constantly damp, and it's not water, but not really sure what it is, but it just consistently stays damp. And then like this terrible shade of yellow wallpaper just coats the whole place.
It's like that awful like school from the early 80s, late 70s feel to it, and when you say the carpets are damp, like I see the carpets in the photo you put up, I instantly can feel it, smell it, and understand what those damn carpets feel like, because I felt like they washed them like on like very regular intervals at school, like in a way.
So the whole idea is, right, that you would just be doing something in your normal everyday life, and then just like it said, no clip out of reality into this space. And there's something just, and at this point in time in the lore, there was no like, I mean, besides it saying God save you if you hear something wandering around, but other than that, there wasn't really a whole lot of lore going into like creatures or entities that were going to hurt you. The whole horror or creepy aspect of it is just being in like this somewhat familiar place, but also very unnerving place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what gives it the real scary factor, I guess. It's just that isolation and confusion and no sense of an end point to it.
Okay, so how would you describe the phrase "no clip"?
So think about when you're playing a video game that's still in alpha, right? And you start to like walk up a mountain and then you just fall through the world into like nothingness, right?
Okay.
That would be like no clipping. That's where really like the term came from, but used in other essences like this, right?
So it's mostly a gamer term, right?
Right.
Yeah, in a way.
I've never really encountered it before. I didn't know that was the phrase for it. I knew the phenomenon, but I didn't know that was the phrase for it. So that's good to know.
Yeah. So there's films attached to this as well, right?
Yeah, so this kind of stayed a little underground. I mean, like you had like your big like creepypasta wiki goers and 4chaners and stuff like that were kind of slowly building onto this. And then you started having I think in like late 2019, early 2020, the first like found footage video appeared on YouTube, and it was just a short clip. It wasn't by the guy I told you that I showed you earlier. But it was the same idea, right? It was like someone peeking around a corner in this big yellow hallway, and you just hear the fluorescent lights humming, and you just get this really unsettling feeling watching that like short 20 seconds or whatever it was. Other stuff, kept adding on. People kept kind of going with it a little bit. It started to gain some popularity after those found footage videos came out. And then the guy that I showed you, the Kane Pixels, came out with his video about a year ago now, and it kind of blew up the entire thing, right? Like it made it at the forefront of the internet as opposed to like back in a dark corner. Like you saw that first video he put up has 50 million views on it, right?
Yeah, dark corner is how I definitely describe 4chan. So
right.
I mean, let's be real. It's Reddit. Reddit's like the formal cousin to 4chan.
So his videos are like phenomenally well done. He started with that first one. He released the second one. They seem, for all intents and purposes, real, right? It's all CGI. It's all done up in Blender.
Really?
And it's like surprisingly realistic, right? And they're just something unnerving. I think even if you took the monster or whatever that pops up in the videos out, they would still just be like, you would finish watching that video and just be like, what the fuck did I just watch?
Well, that's the source of a good true creepypasta, and like kind of like a urban legend on the internet is a little bit of what the fuck did I just watch? What just happened? And I think that really is captured well in the video, because the video you made us watch that video before we started. It's like 9 minutes long. And I actually made my significant other watch it with me, and they got to watch me freak out whenever the monster turned up, because I'm a big old baby. But it's really well done. I honestly didn't expect Blender to be the source of it. I did not expect a lot of what came out of that. I mean, I think there was even a scene towards the beginning if they turn around and there's a corner, you can see something go back behind the corner.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to pee my pants. Thankfully, my pants were safe. But for now, at least for now, I'm really intrigued. I'm kind of blown away by it.
Yeah, so what's interesting about this whole Kane Pixels phenomenon is it kind of took it in a different turn. And so I think a lot of people who are into this story in particular kind of consider like his found footage and his videos kind of its own universe, its own version of this. And the reason being is like the original story and a lot of what you'll find on like fandom or Wikidot is all about like the idea that this is like a real paranormal thing that you just no clip out of reality and into this place and there's no escape and things like that. You guys saw the first two videos of Kane Pixels, but it goes on to like really expand upon the lore, and it actually kind of takes it in a Stranger Things direction, where like it was in the late 80s, early 90s, like this company is working using a system to try to find this subliminal place to use outside of our pocket of reality that is for storage. And then they're talking about doing retail and residential that basically because of like the expanding population, they found a way to create like an alternate space. And that is what the Backrooms is. So they find it. They managed to like open this door to it. Very Stranger Things-esque, right? And they start researching it and everything. And along the way, they start like running into some of these like entities and creepy things and time dilation and stuff like that. It's a really cool lore, but it's a lot different than I think like what the original people who are kind of building up this creepypasta intended for it to be.
So we have multiple universes of the Backrooms.
Yeah, which is expected.
There's multiple universes, and I guarantee there's probably like a corner of the internet that believes that this is a real thing. Like I imagine, that you can blip into the office building of the Mundane and run into I Am Groot monsters and stuff. So
yeah. But I think it's in the same vein that like people believe in Slender Man or people believe in any other topic we've ever talked about that's paranormal or anything else, right? Like it's almost just fun to believe it, and so that's why you get into it.
Yeah, and I'm not like poo-pooing the idea of it. Like, and the Tulpa rule, like if enough people like think of it, then they'll manifest it to be real. So
yes!
like we basically extended the universe that anything could be real if we prove Tulpa's real. So.
I love circular logic and urban mythology and things like that. So like, because this is why this is that whole thing. Like I was going to ask you, has anybody in the real world actually said that they have been to the Backrooms? Like, have you encountered any of that at all?
Yeah, I mean, but it's all the same people who normally write like autobiographical creepypasta, right? Like,
yeah.
It's heavily fiction, of course, but they're not marketing it as fiction because that takes away from the fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting because the whole concept that this is you've slipped through the bounds of reality into a place that's 60 million miles of of all these like endless corridors and pseudo monsters. So no one can come back to tell that story. Even the concept of the footage finding its way back is kind of wacky. It's I don't know.
Yeah, and that's what's cool, right? Like, in no way could any of this found footage actually be found if this was a real thing. In Kane Pixel's first video, you see the monster like catch the guy, and then the camera like no clips back into reality up in the sky, and then like lands in a yard, and that's how they found it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So is it specifically this guy's found footage video when the Backrooms went from being 4chan fodder, message board fodder to something like a bigger culturally?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it was strictly like only in 4chan and stuff like that. Like people were talking about it. Like it was growing on its own. Like other people made videos and found footage videos and stuff before Kane Pixels did. But Kane Pixels was so good. I mean, there was other that were good, but his was so good and got such traction that it's really what blew it up. And almost in like a negative way. Like it got kind of asinine.
I'll have you know that the internet, which never lies, says the Backrooms is a fictional concept that originated from an internet horror story and is not a real place and cannot be accessed in the physical world.
Wouldn't it be funny if Zach just like into
Clipped
the
out
floor
of
right there?
clipped out of reality right then and there.
Every time I hear somebody talk like that, even in like an article or something like that, it just reminds me of those people that sit there and ruin movies for not being realistic.
Actually,
he could never do a backflip like that. He'd break his neck.
there's no sound in space. Actually.
There's no oxygen in space, so explosions wouldn't happen. Like, there's just shit like that. It's like, come on, let us have our fun. Let us have our weird paranormal fun. I know that so when it comes to horror, especially supernatural stuff, I like gore and things like that don't really kind of appeal to me. Like, I'm like, I get the audience that likes it, but a lot of times I like spooky shit, like what's poking around the corner, what's gonna like jump out at me to a degree. And
for me, it's psychological horror stuff. Mm-hmm. Like just being creeped the fuck out does it for me. Not so much what happens after.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of that building tension, and I think that's what's great about this kind of thing is, the Backrooms, whether it's fictional or not, is rooted severely in that same kind of tension and fear that we have about ghosts, about unexpected sounds and sights in our normal world. And so I think that's really why it's proliferated in that scope, is because it's just another way to experience that feeling.
Yep. So you asked, or you were talking about, it's this this one long corridor that never ends. So around the same time that it started gaining a lot more traction and kind of blowing up, that lore quickly expanded to now it's not just this one floor of musty yellow walls and damp carpet. That's just the first floor, right? And then it just keeps going up to the point where I saw a video today or yesterday that was like floor 9 million blah 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 of the Backrooms, and it's like, holy shit, dude. And there's videos explaining floors 1 through 100. There's 2-hour videos out there explaining the first 9 floors, right? So, damned if I did, damned if I didn't. I was never going to be able to get all that. But but then I saw one video actually earlier today by Raymundo2112 about why the Backrooms have been ruined. And it kind of went into this phenomenon, right? About how once it blew up, like then everybody wanted to do videos on it. That's us, right?
Yeah, keep watching, everybody. Keep watching.
Well, like these content creators that were just on there, like putting in his example, they had like Sonic and shit like that in there, like running around the Backrooms. And then talking about how, they added like all these floors and everything, and it was no longer just this like strange office setting. Like now you're going down into like
hell or something like that.
I think I read like floor 4 is just like all like flesh walls and stuff, and it's just like, all right, now it's kind of getting out there, and all these new creatures and entities that show up and are chasing you and trying to kill you, and it's just like, well, now it took away from what it was, which was like this existential, like unsettling feeling, and now it's like, oh, and now it's just like any other.
To be honest with you, I think ultimately the biggest thing that captures like the charm of the Backrooms as a horror story is what ruined it with adding all that nonsense with the floors and everything. It's definitely a less is more kind of concept. Because the initial image they give you is literally just empty office building,
Yep.
And that's the
that sounds like the creature from the Backrooms video.
Dude, my cat is being a fucking asshole right now. He is like,
it is so pissed.
Yeah.
I've heard it a couple times. I'm like, is that cat in trouble?
No, he's fine. He's just being an asshole. He knows I'm recording and he's being an asshole.
I'd say anyway, pussy, but whatever.
I honestly think that it's something that it should be less is more. They don't need to add all that bulk to it, in a way. So yeah.
I think I can sum up that guy's feelings in one sentence: is the Backrooms became a meme instead of a horror story, and that's the problem that the guy in the video you're talking about had, and why you said the Backrooms was ruined, is because it became a meme. Throw whatever character you want that is supposedly exists in this alternate reality. Make up your monsters, make up your weird scenarios, and it's just like fun things you throw on the internet for other people to be like, ha, clever. And less of a, like you said, existential dread and kind of spookiness. Because a lot of times what I hear thrown around most when it comes to the Backrooms, because I have heard like weird topics, and that main thing I hear about the most in comparison to it is something called liminal spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Did you run across that at all while you were doing your research?
Oh yeah.
So
I've looked into it before. So liminal, the term or the concept of like liminal or liminal spaces is supposed to just be the transition point between things. Whether, if I'm remembering this right from the definition, is basically, it could be like a transition point in your life, like from a boy to a man. It could be a transition between like one room to another, like a threshold, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or transition between reality and like a dream state, or hypnosis, or something like that. So where it's really become popular recently, and I say recently, like, last decade or so, being thrown around, is when it's talking about, you'll see people post pictures online of like this yellow office space, or like whenever in the first video, whenever he goes down to the next level and he looks out the window and there's kind of like that apartment complex or whatever, that's actually another image that was originally in that 4chan thread where this image first pops up too.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I think the title of that thread was like, post like images that like seem normal but are just creepy when you look at them, basically, or places that just look creepy. And so a lot of people post stuff like that and refer to them as liminal spaces, because they're places that like almost seem familiar and like real, but almost don't seem like they would exist in reality, or there's just something off about them. And so they're like these liminal photos.
Like the twin girls in the hotel room in the Shining, I think it is, or like the hallway. That's kind of what I think of when just this eeriness about it. That it's real, but it's kind of not real. But
right,
that's the example that pops into my head. At least.
I mean, that's a great example when you think about the constantly matching wallpaper and carpet. I mean, he's rolling around on his big wheel before he even encounters the twins. It's kind of a creepy look, because he's just this little kid roaming around empty halls with all the same look every time he turned the corner. I guess that would be kind of like considered a liminal space. But kind of what I'm taking away from your definition here is the idea that like a liminal space is literally like the space between transition. Like the space between when you move from this reality into a next, there's something in between, and that's what you fall into. It's endless because technically you're supposed to transition into a different reality, but you're not. Maybe that's off. I don't know, but that's what it sounds like to me, and that makes a lot of sense.
So what's interesting about that is I've read a lot about where kind of where the lore came from. Is obviously when it comes to creepypasta stuff, it's just someone else coming along and adding like bits and pieces to it based on kind of their thoughts about it, and then all those kind of combine, and then you have your overarching story, right? And so from like a psychological standpoint, a lot of it was like almost like this mundane, terrible world we already live in, where we have to go to these dead-end jobs and offices where everything's always the same, and there's just a sense of like uneasiness with that kind of lifestyle, and it kind of translate over to this liminal space, right? that is kind of like just another version of what our real lives actually already are. We're going to what seems like an infinite nothingness every day, and working in these mundane rooms with a million other people doing the same thing. But even though there's a million other people doing that same thing, we kind of feel alone in our own little cube or whatever. So
it's interesting you mentioned that. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because when I showed the video to my significant other, they took it in a metaphorical sense as well. But it had more to do with kind of art being this creative process with like lots of colors and creativity. And so you have the beginning of the video where they're creating something on their own without anybody's help, but then you fall into this kind of corporate zone that's endless where everybody starts to look like they're making the same thing, and this monster is fame that you're trying to get away from because you should be happy where you're at, and ultimately you end up getting swallowed by it and losing what you have. Is a really kind of interesting take on it. It's scary and terrifying, and moving forward and moving upward in terms of success is this scary, terrible monster that's going to consume you, and so you're trapped in this endless maze of mundanity, and
kind of like
it was really cool.
Golden handcuffs concept, it's like you can be as make all this fucking money, and the irony is you're pushing to advance in the corporate world, so you don't have to do the mundane thing, but then you find yourself being buried in just a whole nother set of mundane things, but now you just have more money, and that's about it.
Yeah. So. God, who knew the Backrooms was going to turn into an existential metaphorical discussion? Oh my gosh.
Oh no. What are we going to do?
I don't know. I'm scared.
Me too.
Hold me. It's okay. It's okay.
Yes, you're adorable. So when we talked about yokai before, we talked about how obviously these are damn near ancient folklore, scary stories, right? And we talked about how even though they were, a freaky or scary story, they always had some like bit of meaning to them. I mean, I think that a lot of the scary stuff or the creepy stuff or whatever we come up with today might unknowingly have some of that behind it as well, right? I'm not saying somebody came up with the original story for the Backrooms or whatever because of some prophetic place in their head about corporate America or anything like that. But I think subconsciously, like, people just kept feeding into it based on their own experiences and their own thought processes. And
well, that's how you end up with multiple universes and explanations for what is essentially an agreed upon topic originally.
Right.
I mean, so what makes that creepy in the first place? Is it your connection to something that you think is lame? What if somebody's really into yellow stucco and fluorescent lights? Like, they're like, man, this is heaven. I'm just going to wander for years and it's going to be great. It's like, and I know I'm being funny, but it is a certain degree. It's like, why is it creepy? Because it affects somebody a certain way. And like I said, you get multiple universes and explanations and additions. And some people just want to see the world burn. They just want to make jokes. So Sonic the Hedgehog shows up on floor 7,353, it's weird stuff like that. And it's just funny to them. It's weird things that take them away from that silliness, that kind of like boring.
I feel like Sonic is just so tightly knit with this corner of the internet, like for some reason, just Sonic he appears, and it could have nothing to do with Sonic at all, and he's just there. He just makes his way into the fiction somehow, and
it's like Sonic and like Five Nights at Freddy's and like Fortnite,
Among Us, yeah. And
you know why? Because it's all the kids memes, and they're like the highest population of YouTube viewers, right? So
yeah.
Makes sense. Absolutely. I actually thought it was because lots of furries enjoy the Backrooms. I don't know.
Wrong Backrooms, but
wrong Backrooms. I thought we weren't. I thought we got that joke out of the way already.
Oh, damn it! No,
you got it out of the
way. We each have to do it. I didn't realize that. My bad.
Absolutely. Let's just keep making bad jokes. But so the Backrooms is essentially our human fears made real in a weird like bag of holding office space.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it even though it does get a little far-fetched and it takes away from the original meaning, it is really interesting. And some people have put in some real brain power and cool storytelling for the like additional floors and the entrances and the exits and how to escape and all of this kind of stuff. Like there's a whole deep lore. Like I said, I I can give a little bit of background, but I could never cover it all, especially on one episode, but probably in general because I haven't had it with me since its inception.
Fair enough.
Well, I don't think you need to though, because it just goes back to that less is more thing. You know, the more eerie this is, the more creepy it is, kind of a thing. And that's partially because I do consume a lot of YouTube, and so I've consumed like a bunch of like we all have seen those channels where they all read scary stories and everything like that, and they're like, the year was 19, they all have that weird voice, 73, and I, a 12-year-old boy, walked into the man, like,
sometimes a specific channel.
There's several of them. I don't know. I'm not gonna
I think
call
they emulate the one guy that does it,
so those things can get a little just too much for me sometimes, but like simple stories where you legit just show the picture of the office building or the office rooms, or you like there's no explanation, you just get dropped into the game, kind of a thing. That's what's going to leave me with a memorable story, not the like I was 12 years old, my mom and dad took me on a trip, and it's.
You want to make your own horror out of something that you see instead of somebody tell you a specific story with a specific ending.
Our imagination is more cruel to us than any other like storyteller could be. You know, it's like I think our imagination, our brains run so wild with what the hypothetical could be, you know, like, and then we convince ourselves that it happens, or it could happen, or it could be plausible, even though it's clearly not, you know.
Yeah.
So I think the human mind is they're counting on the watcher or the listener or the consumer of the story to make it, to fill in the gaps for their own sake of the story. So
maybe our minds were the back rooms the whole time. Yeah, I mean it's a really cool phenomenon as a whole. I love any creepypasta story that, for lack of better words, grows legs. And just like evolves into its own like universe of stories, and like we said before, it's just a cool concept to think about, especially this one. And I like the way one of the videos I watched framed it as mundane horror, because that's a genre that you really don't see too often. You know, we have like our psychological horror that usually is pretty intense. I mean, and then obviously your gory stuff and things like that. But we don't really ever get something that's just like this low key creepy. Like it wasn't even, like I said, you don't have to have a monster or entities or anything. Just walking around in that space. I mean, when you watch the main videos, Kane Pixels, I say main, the most popular ones, and you go into a room that's like in different levels, or just has like a random banister or a hole up in the wall with a ladder up to it. Like, just something that's so odd about that just kind of puts a chill up your spine.
Yeah,
there was
something so simple.
There was a dumpster in the first video.
Rope.
Yeah, it's just like, what is that?
I'm getting like kind of the same. Do you guys ever watch that movie Vivarium? With like
I haven't watched it, but it's on my watch list. I know what you're talking about, where it's like an endless row of suburban houses.
Yeah. That stuff. The entire film experience itself is just unsettling, you know. But it's not like, they'll do some things on the nose in it that's just like, ew, you know. But for the most part, like, you're just uncomfortable being there because it's just so artificial and just so manufactured to look real. And everything, it's almost like another version of Uncanny Valley. It's real enough, but it's clearly not real. You know,
that's a good point, because I remember when I watched that trailer, that was the first thing that popped in my mind, was like, it seems very like Backrooms as, because I've kind of ended up in this like alternate reality type of endless nothingness.
Yeah.
So, with that, do you feel like you covered everything with the back rooms? There's nothing back there anymore?
Yeah, like I said, depending on which camp you're in, if you're into the whole like, oh, there's a million floors to the back rooms, and you know, and there's some crazy stuff happening on every floor, and there's all these crazy entities, then no, I did not even scratch the surface. I can definitely link some videos in the description to where you can go to view some of that. I saw some great channels that go over that content. But I think, and you guys are probably the same. I'm in the camp where I really like just the original. I like the original story, with just kind of like just the bleak mundaneness of it and just how creepy that is. And then I also like what Kane Pixels has done in kind of his own universe, just because honestly the quality of his work is so phenomenal. Like, I mean, he really makes you believe it.
Yeah.
And he's 17 years old too. So,
yep.
Well, insane. 18 now, I think, but I don't know.
Yep.
That's wild.
But besides that, I think I've covered kind of at least the basis of what the Backrooms are. Some kind of the psychology that goes around, like what makes this scary or what makes this creepy, and then like how it kind of connects to real life a bit. So do you guys have any other questions about Backrooms? You guys have anything you want to bring up?
I'm actually pretty good. I was impressed with just Z and I actually maintaining as long as we did. I think I was going to break at some point a couple times during the episode just because I'm just being goofy over here. I'm having a grand old time. It's the Backrooms is fascinating. It's creepy. It definitely reminds me of so many things. I've loved talking about it. But I do also love the silliness of some of the things you mentioned, because I have seen some of those videos where people like post Backrooms experiences where there's like fictional characters or like what is it, like SpongeBob doing like the Running Man or some shit like that. Like, I've seen some ridiculous stuff. I love it. It's a great time, and I'm glad we talked about it.
Ultimately, yeah, like this is a really cool concept, really awesome story. I kind of wish it wasn't just a creepypasta. Like I wish it was kind of more like on par with like, you know, it could be real kind of a thing, but it's clearly a creepypasta and everything. Because the concept of being blipped or like video game fall through the floor into the back rooms or the developer rooms, that's kind of what the feeling I'm get, would just be a fun conspiracy theory to like really explore, you know, and fuck it. Let's just start a new conspiracy rumor. It's all part of the simulation, everybody. That's that's you falling into the developer room of the simulation. You heard it here. You heard it here, everybody. Go do conspiracy theory things. You heard it from me, QAnon.
So one of the things when watching his videos about this company or whatever, they were trying to get like a government contract for this to build this out and use it for like mass storage and stuff like that. And all I could think of the whole time was like they were going to cordon these areas off for the government. And like you have one big room just full of Polybius machines and one with like the giant of Kandahar's body in it. And
it's just every episode of Chaotic Pupcast / Chaotic Underground. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I had a lot of fun talking about this. Like I said, check the description below. I'll put some links to some of the videos we spoke about, along with some videos where you can find out some more information about some of the expanded lore on the Backrooms, because I know I didn't do it justice. But with that, we're going to tell you goodnight. Make sure you like and subscribe, like I said at the beginning of the video. Really just trying to help pump our algorithm game up. And also check out some of our other videos. We just got done talking about Men in Black. You know, what do we got coming next week?
Mothman.
We're gonna be talking about Mothman. We got a special guest coming on for Mothman.
Yeah, we got our boy Cripsed coming on for Mothman. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and buy our merch.
Buy some merch. We got new stuff coming out soon, but there's still great things in there right now.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah.
All right. Have a good night. We'll see you next time.
See you later, everybody.